First off, let me say, no, I really appreciate you guys' time. Like this is a really cool learning experience for me. Obviously, like just hearing from two guys who are breathing life into a new TCG. And I want to first tell you about like my background, what I'm doing, and I want to like figure out the origins of what you guys are. So I grew up with Magic the Gathering, right, from a kid. Later in life, as an adult, I was like, hey, I'm a grown ass man. I can actually buy the packs that I want now, and I started collecting. And then I got into Flesh and Blood, and then Flesh and Blood is just amazing. I've just totally like sunk like everything I had into it. Made a YouTube channel for it, and then now I'm looking to diversify. I'm looking at other games a little bit. I'm still like madly in love with Flesh and Blood. It'll be my sole passion. But I came upon your game Genesis, and it has a lot of themes around Flesh and Blood. Like you're hero centric. You start out full and with like full like stamina and everything, but then as the game progresses, you lose your the aura. You lose your deck because you're using all those cards that are the ones that you have to do the physical techniques, and then you lose more of your deck. So as the game progresses, you get lower life. And I just really like the artwork and everything. And as a collector, it looks really cool. And that's where I'm coming in, learn about your game. And I just wanted to ask real quick, like in the beginning, like, what did it take to take like a concept on paper to making a TCG business or a collectible card game business? Like, what did it take to go to concept to alpha and beta?
uh, I wish there was a way I could redirect this to Alex. Um,
Can't.
Alex came late in the project. He came in just earlier this year. He came as part of the actual game design team.
Oh wow.
So I've been working on this project. I did have a really close group of friends who helped me work on it. So I can't say I worked on it solo. I had a lot of great people working on it, but most of the time I was the common denominator throughout the entire project. The big key to it was I never intended to launch the game.
Wow.
So I started off when I was designing it in high school. It was the game we played between other games. So we would play Magic, run out of money, play Genesis. Then we get our money back, and it's like, oh, we should all go check out Yu-Gi-Oh! So we went and played Yu-Gi-Oh! For a while. Ran out of money, went back to Genesis. And then we're saving up for university, which means we had some disposable income. So
Mm-hmm.
we went back to Magic, and then we ran out of disposable income. We went back to Genesis. And it wasn't until I got to university that I started talking to my friends about how, I have these really cool ideas that I want to take from my learnings at university, put it into a card game, and can you test it with me? So it was never the intention of starting a company. It just happened organically. And then eventually, what happened in 2017 was I had the game, and I turned to my buddy and I was like, I want to learn what it's like to publish a game, get it onto a store shelf. The goal was find one store and get the game onto that shelf.
Mm.
Uh, and then, so we took it to a convention. We started selling. Things went well. We got it onto the store shelf, and I was like, "What about a second store? What about a third?" And it just kept on snowballing, right? I think Alex, you were the third store we signed up, right?
I don't know what store I was.
It was within the first five for sure. First five. I just know it wasn't one or two, but
And you just knocked on doors, like you went to Alex's door and said, "Hey, I got a really cool game. You wanna put it on the shelves?"
Actually, no, I knocked on his door.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it's the other way around.
yeah. You can tell that story. Hey,
I'll
I
tell
can
that
pass
story.
something off. You tell that story.
So I was at a convention because my wife is a dice vendor. She creates her own dice, so she was selling dice, and I usually go with her to cons. So we just do on the weekends. And then there were in the far section of the con, there was a trading card that was running demos and stuff. And I love card games. Quick backstory for my thing. I started playing Magic when I was 4.
Mm.
Because at my swimming lessons, there were people playing Magic, and I told my dad, "That looks cool. There's a crab. I want to play Magic." Uh, and I literally played every single card game. Did unlike Sid where he went off. As a kid, I played Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic
Hmm.
because in the schedule at my local game store was Pokemon. Then right after that was Yu-Gi-Oh. Then it was Magic, and actually there was Hero Click somewhere in between, and I did that as well. But
So you're like, "Oh, I'll just
so
go
I got
along with the ride." Like, well, okay,
pretty much.
I'm
It
here.
was an amazing day. It was an enjoyable day every Saturday. Was amazing. So yeah, at the convention, literally walked over. He was running demos. Actually, first time I went over, he was running demos for other people. So I
Hmm.
came back several times. Not that I don't know if you know that, Sid, but every time I came over, you were demoing for people, which I don't know is the norm at a convention. We always have somebody there. But eventually, I came in, played the game, beat Sid. You know that's normal. No, nothing new. Probably went easy. You go easy always on the first game, but a little bit. But
Yeah, just to get you
and then I went,
into it.
yeah, get me into it. I'm like, okay, how much for a case? And he goes, what? I said, how much for a case of Genesis? And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, I own a store. So I also own my own card game, my own local game store down here in Brampton, Ontario. So I was just like, yeah, I want a case. And he's like, oh, let me find my retailer package and give it to you.
I remember
Oh,
that
it's too
because
funny.
when I was giving you that information, and I asked you to sign the invoice, and the only reason I did that is because I did not believe you were a store. I thought you were a player who was just trying to get product really cheap. So I was like, if I get him to sign it, then I have like proof, right? And I'm like, I'm freaking out. And I remember after the convention talking to my partner, like my friend who helped me there, and I was like,
Mhm.
can we count this sale as part of our win for the convention? Like, is this part of our convention's earnings or is this a separate thing? It was so confusing. I did not believe he had a store until I actually went to his store. I just dropped
Wow.
by one day and he was playing Genesis with his friends. I was like, oh, not only are they store, he actually wanted to play.
That is such a cool story. And this was an alpha, right? When you had your first alpha printing, or
Beta,
beta?
beta.
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
so that's how rare alpha is. A lot of people ask for alpha, but like I started at beta, and I was pretty early in on the project, even then.
So I think Alpha, we the booster packs were printed very sparingly. And then my large print run for Alpha booster packs, I printed like 8 or 10 boxes, and we only
It's
had
like
two stores
nothing.
signed up, so both of them bought that inventory. Like, I was like, "Okay, I only have 5 boxes dedicated to you. How many do you want?" He's like, "I'll take all 5." So both stores bought all that inventory, and then we printed off a little bit that I held aside, and we auctioned it off at our first championship. But really, for alpha packs as a whole, so few product.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of that was just I didn't think it would sell. I didn't think there was much of a demand for it, so I didn't want to print off more than I could handle.
And that's a funny topic, and that leads me to this growing industry trend that I'm seeing, where these companies that are emerging in the TCG realm, like Flesh and Blood and MetaZoo, they're making these extremely limited products, right? They extremely limited print run, and it's easy for the public to say, "Oh, they're just doing that because they want to like hype up demand with a low supply." But in reality, I think it's more of just making enough product for the current market. And then later on, when the market increases, then it looks small. And from your standpoint, after beta, how do you determine what you're going to print? Like how much of it? Because you're right, like you don't want to print too much, and then you have too much of it, and you can't pay the cost for the printing. How does that whole thing work?
It's a very difficult conversation. We're currently in the process of doing printing for second edition,
Mm.
and there's constantly a fine line. So you have two of us here. There's a third partner, Chris, who he is a lot more focused on marketing, sales. He is about the money in and out of the company, right?
Hmm.
So for him, it's like more money, more popularity. This just makes sense. Let's expand as much as possible.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to tell him that like we don't want to expand faster than the inventory we have to supply.
Mm.
And the thing is, right now you can't predict the market. I think maybe 5, 10 years ago it was a little bit easier to predict how much you would have in sales, how long it would take for you to get your raw product or raw materials to do printing, where you are in the print schedules. All
Hmm.
those things were a lot easier to predict. Even in my time, doing 3 print runs so far with a large print studio, and now we're on our fourth. This fourth one, it's so hard to predict any information around it.
Yeah.
So those decisions, we do our best, but I think, to be honest, like, especially with Flesh and Blood, I'm a part of it is I don't think they realized or calculated a lot of how much they would expand, and the delays between getting paper to printer to distributor. Uh, by the time you start the project, when did we start working on second edition? Like, I want to say 5, 6 months ago.
Yeah, yeah, 5 months.
Um, between then and now, the our entire business has changed, but we had
Mm,
to order how much inventory we wanted back then. So 5 months ago, we had to predict how much inventory we need now,
five
and we,
months? Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
and we are having to predict that for our next product launch already, and it's really difficult.
Yeah, and when I hear people talk about printings, right?
Mhm.
I hear a lot, and I think you might have debunked this, is that people think that you can just send up orders in like waves, right? So you just call up the printing company, you're like, hey, I need another wave when you need it. But I don't know if that's even the case. Like it from what you're saying, like 5 month delay, because when I think of it, you have to print it and then they have to package it, they have to ship it to your location, and then after you get it in your location, don't you have to give it out to distribution? And then distribution gets it and then they send it out to the people. Like are you able to call in separate waves, or is it just like, hey, like one big order?
um, so not to pull the curtain back too much, but so one thing to understand is the printers aren't just sitting there waiting for the next job to come.
Mm,
They have a company, they have employees, they need to pay salaries. They are making sure that their schedule is packed all the time. So you can't just call them and be like, "Hey, I need printing done tomorrow." This isn't like going to Kinko's or to a regular print shop. This is uh, all they do is print these large scale. So they're working with companies like Walmart, Costco. So when you call them and even for beta, and I was like,
hmm.
"Oh, I just need this many booster packs made." They're like, uh, "That's barely enough for me to turn on the machine. You need to order way more for me to be interested to just turn on the machine."
Wow.
So there's so much that has to go on that end. Then you got to think they get the order. Now they have to say, all right, do we have the supplies internally to do this? Like, are there enough leftover papers from some other project to do this? Or do we have to order paper? And ordering paper before 2 years ago, if to order paper, it took, 3 to 4 weeks. Now we're
Mm,
talking 4 to 8 months to get paper. So if I wanted to do another print run right now, and I was lucky, they're like, "Hey, we have the schedule, we have the process, everything's in place. Let's order the paper." The paper's not arriving until near the end of the year, right?
wow.
So no matter what our demand is, we can't do those. So when Flesh and Blood announced that their new starter decks are going to be print on demand, I'm super curious of how they're getting that done because that's just not the same story I'm hearing. And then you're right. Afterwards, you now have the plants have to run everything, and you have to think half their staff's gone from COVID
Hmm.
and vacation time. Then you got to ship it to your distributor to retail stores. You got to make sure that now your retail stores in Canada, US, and Europe are all getting the product at the same time, so we can have synchronous release time. I'm telling you, the amount of stress that's coming in from second edition, if I wasn't like already bald then,
That's
it's
nuts.
been a long.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that there was like this paper issue. And I'm sure too, when you place your initial order, you probably get a volume discount. So if you do it in multiple different ways, you're really not helping yourself because that's going to, that's more expense doing it like in smaller batches than one big batch. And I didn't even know, okay, like they want to queue up all this stuff. So even if you call in your order, it's like the line at the grocery store deli. You might be like fifth place in line, so you can't call and say, "Hey, I want to butt into first place," unless you're maybe like the big boys. Maybe you can do that, but that's crazy. And
Well,
yeah.
yeah, Alex actually got to see this. We went to our printers recently to do the spot check and quality check for um, Genesis. And Alex, I really want to hear your story of your that entire trip. But one thing that he got to see, and I thought was really cool, was that they were queuing up a project for Ultra Pro. So the
Oh.
printers we use are the ones who do all the Ultra Pro printing in Canada. So you gotta think Ultra Pro, like, and us, right? Like when we call up and we're like, "Can we do a project?" They're like, "Oh, sure." You're like the little brother. Oh, cute. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll do it for you.
We'll pencil you in. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So is
how
it
was that,
Ultra Pro or
Alex?
Upper Deck?
Oh yeah, yeah, right. Upper deck, upper
Upper
deck.
Deck, which
Yeah,
is much bigger. All the sports cards.
yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It was crazy. Just the piles and piles of sheets and all this stuff, and they're like, these are super exclusive cards that only show up one per like several cases. We're seeing them manufactured, and it's like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah. Sort of that sort of thing you were talking about with the paper thing. I'm still slightly shocked about the paper. I'm like, I want to buy something, and they go, we don't have paper for that. I'm like, what? Isn't that your business? What do you mean you don't have paper for printing? I'm so confused. Uh, and the issue we had recently is like when they were ordering paper for second edition,
Hmm.
and they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be delayed. This is gonna be delayed. This is gonna be delayed." They're like, "Oh, we found more paper." We're like, "Oh, cool!" And like they got more paper. Awesome. Well, now they had to order that paper, which didn't, I think, change much timeline. They just bought it from a different spot.
Hmm.
Then they got that paper, and I'm like, "All right, cool. They're gonna have extra paper for the next run." And they're like, "No, we don't got paper for the next run." Like, but weren't you ordering two papers, one from one place and one from the other? I was like, they no, they still don't have paper. No, we have to reorder paper again.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nuts. It's like calling McDonald's and saying, "Hey, I want a cheeseburger," and they're like, "Oh, we don't have the meat yet. We need to procure the meat for your order." No, but and
And
I saw the article on your website. Those cards look beautiful, and this is the first time you guys are gonna have like foiling in the cards, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
how was that process, and how did you select like the different foiling? And I know one big thing in the market, people don't like Pringles chips apparently. It's like
no,
they don't like to curl. Did you
yeah.
look into that? And yeah, how was that process?
Uh,
Hey,
Alex,
who's
you want to
that?
speak on that?
Uh,
So I was actually grabbing one of the foils from our current promo foils. It does curl a little bit,
But that's not a
but
big
it's
curl. That
not
looks
very
good.
Pringle.
great.
It's not Pringle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are foils that I got printed with rays. So they've been sitting in this tin for months now, and this is all the curling that's on it. So yeah,
So when referring to the foils, I was slightly worried about the foils. Not the Pringles effect, not the Pringles effect at all, but the foils that were made for the Patrons and stuff like that in the past,
Hmm.
they made the cards a little dark. They were still cool, but they were a little dark. So I'm like, I hope with this print run, it's not like that. And then we went and we saw it, and it's not like that at all.
Oh, nice.
Because this is actually a different factory. This is apparently the best factory or whatever they said they are. I'm sure they're all the best factory, but but they had a brand new machine. Literally, they had just bought it,
Oh, nice.
uh, and like comparing the two, it felt like they were brighter, they were shinier. I'm really excited about that, but there's also we're here to talk truthfully. There's
yeah,
some
yeah,
uncertainty to it too.
Hmm.
So normally you varnish both sides of your cards. And when the printers the printers came up to us, which is good. They're like, "Hey, we don't think you should do this on the foils.
Hmm.
It will change the effect of your foiling."
yeah,
So I don't know how that affects stuff in the long run.
yeah.
That's so that's what's to be determined. And I really don't know.
Because they don't want to put
So
varnish on the back end of the card as well as the
So
front.
so normally a regular card does the varnish on the back and the front.
Hmm.
So this one they'll have the varnish on the back, but there won't be the varnish on the front because it would ruin the foiling.
Oh, okay.
so
And what's that? I never heard of that before. All trading cards have like light varnish on the top, of the front and the back.
it's to protect the cards, right? Like it's so that it's a little bit harder to scratch them, damage them, chip them. It gives them that extra level of protection. So
Oh,
that
that's
was what they
cool.
were saying about the foiling is that if we put the varnish on it, you're gonna lose a lot of the foiling effects. You have a lot higher chance of the varnish damaging the cards,
Hmm.
uh, and all these things. But the downside to it is they're a little less protected. So the players will have to be more delicate with them, like get them into sleeves right away. Otherwise, you have a chance of damaging that front. But it's gonna look a lot nicer. Like the
Yeah.
actual, it's gonna feel like a prize card.
Mm.
And that's what you want from a foil, right? You want to look at a foil and be like, yeah, this was worth it.
Yeah,
This
you
is
want it to
what I was
shine.
waiting for. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the better option. But that shows again, like of all the background type of decisions you guys have to make that are like not like, black and white. It's like you have to pick which one's better. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And maybe that's because the varnish is a little bit heavier, so when you try to see through the card, the like light doesn't penetrate as much. I don't know,
Mhm.
but yeah, those the foiling on the cards looks cool. And what I didn't know too before Assad, you sent me pictures, is that the printers and Alex, I know you went to the facility. There's like red, yellow, and blue separate print sheets, and they print like the same sheet with different like four different colors. Is that true?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy. I thought it was
Uh,
always
Yeah,
like an inkjet printer like this.
no, this is old school technology. Like this is how printing. This is like how printing was done way back in the day, before laser, before inkjet. It's just the idea of, you remember those old cartoons where if you looked in close enough, you could actually see the different colored dots.
Sounds
So
familiar.
like the old newspaper comic strips.
Hmm.
It's that kind of style. Like if these three colors in combination, along with black, will give you every color. So you
Oh.
just have these plates that get loaded up with the ink and just stamped onto the sheet of paper.
Are-
But the thing that was really cool about this machine was that the way the ink dried, it's not air dried or anything like that. It's UV light dried, the
Oh.
same way you would do with like a 3D printer. You use UV light to cure it. This was using that same type of ink, which is using UV light. And that's what makes the foils and all the colors that Alex was talking about earlier, makes them pop a little bit, because now the colors aren't seeping into the paper as it dries.
Hmm.
It stays on the surface, and it stays just as bright from when you printed it to when it got cured.
That sounds cool. And when they print it, is it like four machines that have four different plates and then they stamp it and then it like goes up forward? Or is it just like one stamping thing and it just changes out sheets?
No, no, it's actually 5 machines, because sometimes they need a 5th color. They didn't explain to me why. They're like, "Yeah, sometimes we need a 5th color, but you don't need that." I'm like,
That's
"Okay,
the placebo
sure."
machine. It doesn't do anything. It just looks cool. That's too
But
funny.
yeah, you have the sheet of paper, it goes through, gets stamped by, what was the order? I think it was yellow, red, blue, then black at the end or something like that, and just goes through them and just gets stamped as it goes along. And then at the end, gets cured and then dropped off. So one sheet of paper is going through that entire machine in like, what, a fraction of a second?
yeah.
Wow. A
Because they're
fraction of
going
a
through
second, it goes through
18,
one thing.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, all of the machines, it gets cured. Like it was crazy. They did,
Yeah.
how many sheets they did? They did 150 sheets in like 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, like the foil
Wow.
sheets. It
Yeah, that
was
sounds about right.
really fast. Yeah, it was insanely fast. This machine was amazing. Like I was just dumbstruck the entire time we were there. Comparing this to like the old machines that we used for beta, you'll
Uh-huh.
notice if you take any of the cards from like beta, J, or Rays and compare them to second edition, exact same artwork, exact same files a lot of the time,
Hmm.
and the cards from second edition are gonna just look nicer.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So second edition, you're like, hey, we just want to bump it up an extra notch with all these the card quality, and what more does second edition have than first edition with Jalara?
We didn't make that decision to bump it up. The printer was like, "Wait, wait, wait. You still running as a company? You're doing better. We're gonna bump you up."
Oh,
But
nice.
it was purely a sign of the company just growing. They're like, the printers they used before were for like small commercial printing. So like a small ice cream shop opens up and they need flyers.
Mm.
You send them to this printer. But like the printer they sent us to now is the one that they use. It's like Costco needs stuff done. You send them to this printer.
Ooh.
So they think as us as the client deserve that higher quality. So they bumped us up.
So you
That's what
went
they said.
from Coach to what is it? Economy Plus is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That sounds
Uh,
awesome.
I mean, that's the thing I love about salespeople. They'll say this stuff, and you seem so hyped about it. You go around tell all your friends, you're like, "I got promoted. My company's doing so well. They love us." And in the back of their mind, they're like, Yeah, that was the only printing studio that was open at the time.
Oh,
Like, you have no idea what's happening behind closed doors, but
that's
um,
crazy how much, yeah,
yeah,
stuff happens on behind closed
uh,
doors and all this stuff.
but
I'm just blown away that it takes that long to put in an order, and it makes sense to me because they're a business. They have to do things in a certain order. They can't just have empty machines just waiting around for an order. They've got to have a set schedule and everything. But if I can transition to the card game itself, the mechanics and everything. What do you think your target market is for the game itself? Because I feel like it's in the Magic the Gathering realm. Like it's a teenage to adult plus, but I won't put words in your mouth. But
I'm gonna put words into Alex's mouth. Alex, speak.
I, I would 100% agree. It's 100% the magic range,
yeah,
teens up. Um, I can say the youngest I've taught was like a 6-year-old. I don't know why, but apparently, and there was a younger kid came into my store one time. Little girl, she's like, "I played Genesis at a convention. I want it." And I went, "You did?" I was like, Okay." But
So
no, definitely the teenage up,
would you
100%.
ever like what's the most adult you think you'd get? I don't mean to give you hard
mhm.
questions.
How old's Carl?
Carl's in his 50s. Um, so the thing I think why we can hit older audience and a younger audience is because of the board experience. With the older audience, they're looking at this. It's like I played Magic as a kid, or in my 30s. In Carl's case, Carl's not that old, but we make fun of him all the time. I love the guy. So I played Magic when I was younger. Transitioned into more miniatures or tactics or chess. Something that uses different parts of my mind. And then when they play Genesis, it's like, okay, it combines those two things. It gives them the nostalgia as a kid, but also that high complexity of a tactics game.
Mm,
Um, like, not to say other TCGs aren't complex, they're definitely complex, but this allows for uh, combining those different realms, which other games don't touch as much. And then as for the little kids, I actually remember that demo. Comically enough, Carl did that demo. um, and one of the things kids love is that it's not just put the card down, tap it, and leave it alone. It's put it down, move with it, interact with it.
yeah.
They can bond with it. I remember having this little kid play the game, and he had this. He played with Hunting Hound. It's a little dog that comes on the field. Whenever the dog would bite, he'd be like, bah, bah, bah. Like, pretend that he's biting with it, and like you can actually have that interactive experience. That as long as you keep the card simple, the kids love that.
Well, and I really like it for that point is that you guys do keep what is it? Stay in like the teenage realm, I believe, and upper adult, but you don't get too adult. And I think that one of the founding things I think I read on your site, I did a little due diligence. You're saying like learning is really good. Trading card games are a great way to like learn with math and just skills in general. And I do agree. Like the whole tactics aspect is I think what makes your game a lot different from any of the other TCGs out there is that not only can you role play as a character, but you know what your character is doing. You're flanking on the right or left or behind, or you're in the corner of the map, like surrounded by barricades, or you know where you are spatially, and you have that type of strategic element, which I think is really cool. And I think that overall the game is just very interesting in that aspect of like moving around the board. Like, does that come into play when you're doing like online or like how when you with this whole pandemic and everything? Did you guys have to switch online and through TTS versus like having the cards on webcam?
Yes. The
Yeah,
answer is just 100% yes. You had to go TTS.
yeah,
I once pondered about doing it online and just went, but I have TTS. Why bother?
yeah. And has
At
the
the end of the day,
reception been good? Because TTS, I think, is a great platform. It's just you don't use the physical cards, but what's great is you can have any cards you want, and you can just play with anyone.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, so I actually, before being hired to my current position, was just be the coordinator for TTS for the game,
Oh, nice.
it went really well. I would say almost every single player that played TTS, usually they were learning the game too.
Hmm.
The hard ones was when I had to teach them TTS and the game at the same time. Those are the hard ones. Uh, so other than those ones, it almost always went smoothly.
Hmm.
Uh, Otherwise, no real issues. I think our biggest issue, which is something we're trying to fix, is we didn't have a dedicated learn to play specific day.
Hmm.
And that was, if that's the worst of our issues, that's fine. It just meant I came on any time of the day to play anybody.
That's awesome. And when
Uh,
people do pick up the game, is it what do you think the challenges are? Because coming into the game versus others, it does feel a little bit hard to pick up at first initially, but after a while, and I think the big aspect for me that's tough is you can put as many card of a single card in your deck as possible. I think,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
that
Yeah,
is
and
correct. Yeah.
but other than that, like getting to the 250 makes sense. You could have like what is it, 10 or no, 25, I don't know. You can have all 5 point values or you can have 50 cards that are 5 point values or you can like go to 4 or 8 and you have to like mix and match. I like that aspect. But what do you think like the challenge points are?
100%. It is literally the very starting point.
Okay.
So the first time I came to Sid being like, I want to be part of your team, I went, Sid, I want to be a part of your team. Your starter deck sucks. That is literally what I said. I said, I want to work with you. Your starter deck is terrible. Whenever somebody comes to get into the game, I say, do not buy a starter deck. Just buy packs in the same amount of the starter deck. Trust me, it'll be way better for you. That was the beta starter deck.
Keep in mind with that, the beta starter deck was like 3 times the price that it is now.
Oh, this
I
We
thing?
know, I know,
dropped
I
it
know.
significantly.
Yes, that one.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
now it's like
and
$25. This is a really
Yeah.
cool
yeah,
product.
Yeah, back
but
when I started, it was $50 to get into it.
yeah,
So you can see where I'd be like, just buy half a box. Just buy
Oh,
half a
definitely.
box. You'll get
yeah,
you'll get 12 rares
yeah.
to go with it. It's like,
If I could do a compliment sandwich, though, I had this, and I do agree fully with Alex. Like the packs and everything, it's very, and I think that's more of you're trying to make the person think and do a little due diligence and figure out how to deck create because that's a good skill. But it's good to have like a pack that people can just play out of the box. But other than that, I love the box, the thickness of it. This is perfect. I feel like a lot of games with their starter sets, they don't include like a box that you can just put all your crap in after you're done. And what's great is everything is there to play out of the pack. So you got the dice, you got the little exhaustion counters. Like I think it's a cool kit. But yeah, for $25 right now, for $50 it's a hard sell. Then you just buy the box. But yeah.
Uh, I think for me, the difficulty when I was just starting the game was we were coming off of the wave of board games, right? Board games
Mhm.
had their big peak. I want to say like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, was when everyone was playing board game. Board game cafes were the thing to go to. And not saying that board games aren't a thing right now. People still love them, play them, design them. Kickstarter is still very popular for that.
Mhm.
But it was so hard going to conventions, board game conventions, and convincing people to play TCG. And when I would pitch it as a collectible card game, it was a hard no. But
Oh.
when I had a starter kit that was saying this is more or less like a living card game, you can buy this. You don't have to buy anything else. Just buy this, mix and match the colors, redesign the decks, and then you can go and play. It was a lot more comfortable for people to be like, you know what, sure, let's pick that up. Two of us can play. And then they get the packs inside. They open those up. The next day, they come back to my booth being like, hey, can I get some more packs? And then boom, like it did work because we had to um convince people that this was a comfortable product outside of their
Gotcha.
space of being in a board game. Now I think we're a little bit further from that. We don't have to prove that the game has a future anymore or that the game is worth your investment. People can know that now because we've been around for so long. The game's so solid. So I'm really, really excited about the next starter kits. Alex had a big hand in them, and uh, just coming to those and being like, okay, what do we really wish a starter kit product would have for games like Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh? And I'm really excited about them. After playing them, seeing them, designing them, they're awesome.
I look forward to seeing it. Yeah, because I think that's the only thing I had to say about it. Other than that, like I just love because a lot of games don't come with all the counters too, and those types of game pieces. And you even had the dice for the health, which is beautiful. So you can literally like take that box and play against somebody. Once you construct the decks, which is really cool. And then also with the beta boxes, I bought one and I opened it. And what I love about that is as a collector, I like to set collect, right? Because I like the card art and I like to see it all in one place. And I opened a beta booster box and I collected the whole set for 80 bucks. And then I even had cards left over to make decks. I was like, this is like, this is completely badass. Like, I don't know. I've never experienced that with another TCG where I can just buy a box, open it, get every card I need, and not have to like shop around for singles. So it was really nice for that. Is that going to be the case going forward? Do you think with the second edition? Like, can someone
It,
buy a
I
box and have
definitely
everything?
second edition. Yes, it definitely does.
Yeah. That was actually one of those things that as we grew, uh, I had the suspicion that people were annoyed by the fact that you bought a box and got everything. So in J-Lara, I increased the quantities. I have put in more rares. And then first feedback, this is terrible. Like it's hard for me to get all the rares. It's hard for me to get the commons I'm looking for. It was a mess. Um, so in Rays, we shrunk the set, but we still messed up on the number of rares. So I
Hmm.
think with second edition, we fixed that. And going back to that feeling that beta had, which was you buy a box, you get all the cards, like one copy of every single card at least, and then it's about collecting the numbers that you need,
Mm.
right? I remember Alex's favorite boxes were the ones that had double chrono walkers in the beta boxes.
Oh yeah. That card is pretty dang good. Like just I think any summon that has more than 3 health, especially because if it doesn't, then you could just auto kill with like most of the stuff in the game. I haven't played the game yet, but that's just from what I see.
Well, that you know what you're saying, despite not having played the
Oh,
game.
awesome!
That is right on. That is right on. 3 hit points.
Nope.
It's gonna
Yeah,
die.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, speaking from a collector, I'm really happy that that happened with the beta booster box. But honestly, I think it's good when you don't have everything in one box. And is with the foils, you probably can't collect all the foils in one of the new boxes, right? That's
No,
good.
not even close.
That's good. So
Well, so me and Sid both come from the era back in the day when Magic getting a foil meant something.
yeah.
Nothing against Magic, but it's just back in our days. Well, I said back in our day. It's just you get that one foil, and you were happy. Like, wow, I got a foil.
Like
It's
whoa.
like,
yeah,
Because I
and we
feel
uh,
wanted that experience. We want your
yeah,
foils to mean something to you.
yeah. I think for me, it's a lot about that. Uh, like I want people to enjoy the experience of opening up packs. When you do the box openings and you're streaming that, that's awesome. You enjoy that. But just the general feel of going to the store and buying one pack and just opening that yourself, I think that thrill has dissipated over the years. And it makes sense. They're selling different products. The idea of people buying boxes back in the early 2000s, like to buy an entire booster box of a game, that didn't happen very often. That was very
oh
uncommon.
really? Like
Yeah.
that didn't happen at
Uh,
all? Really?
well, it did, but it was a treat. It was a luxury. A lot of times people were buying one packs, and if you wanted to get a lot of packs, it was like doing a draft, right?
Yeah.
People sitting there and just opening cases and cases. Uh, and also the secondary market wasn't so strong that stores wanted to sit there and open cases of product. They'll open a few boxes, but not like case over case. So the industry shifted, but I think there's still a lot of value in how things were back in those days. The joy of just opening up a pack and not 20 packs, but just one
Yeah,
pack.
and maybe it is because of all the people like myself, when you're a kid and you don't have the money for it, but now we're all grown-ups and we can do that. We can
Mhm.
do that treat. But that is something interesting. I didn't think about it that way. Back in the day
Well,
it wasn't as prevalent. Um
if you think about it, back in those days, if we're talking about the early 2000s,
Yeah.
that was pre-cell phones, pre-laptops. People were not comfortable. Well, I don't want to say everyone, but the community I knew, including my parents, like the idea of spending $100, that was something you weren't comfortable with. But now you're
Yeah.
buying cell phones, and your cell phone's $1,200 or whatever, right? Your laptop's super expensive. Your car's expensive. Everything is getting expensive. So the idea of just spending like $100 on entertainment makes sense. Like early 2000, I'm talking about like PlayStation, right? How much was a video game at those days? Like $20.
Oh yeah.
So spending $100 on entertainment in one go, it was not the norm. And this is also the time when booster boxes were just $100. So things change.
Yeah, it's crazy how the industry has changed that much. Because right now it's like a box opening thing is really hot content on YouTube, and a medium for people and what people want to do, and it's interesting how that's evolved over time. And um, there's another thing I wanted to ask you guys with the topic of balancing the game. How do you go about doing that? Because that seems like a very hard and tedious process when you have all these cards on a new set. And maybe this is a question for Alex, which is good. Like, because not only do you have to create new cards that balance within that set, but you have to look at other cards in the previous set that, like, oh, wait, did this combo and this combo just make this completely broken? And, like, one of the cards I looked at your game so far, Tsunami seems really powerful. Maybe that's just me. And again, I have not played the game yet, so I could be completely. I'm talking
You're
out
right
my
on.
ass.
No, you're right on.
And
So
part of that too.
So
One
Alex,
other
how's
question
how's Origins going?
is like, what is it? Are there any cards that you created and now you're like, oh shit, maybe that's too powerful. Anyway, those are my questions, Alex.
so I am known as the tsunami guy.
Yeah.
So when the first championship happened, I came with the deck that had 20 tsunamis in it.
Well, because it's a 5 cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I did lose the championship. I came in second. So, but I was like, and it was not played. Tsunami was not played back before I started
Oh
playing it.
wow.
I know. I was like, oh wow. So when I started playing the game, I went, Sid, which champion is not played? And then he said Nubia, which is so ironic because now Nubia is the highest tier of meta.
Hmm.
So I went to work making a Nubia deck, and I'm like, well, this Tsunami is an amazing card, and Sid didn't beat me for a year.
That's crazy.
I did beat you for a while until you swapped out Chain Lightnings for more Tsunamis. And I was like, oh, Mythical Protection is no longer useful. And it took me a while until I got those long decks together that could sustain the damage from the Tsunamis. But yeah, that was intense. And the best part about his Tsunami deck was that not only was it only used with beta cards, he only used beta versions of those cards.
Wow.
So his deck was a complete beta deck.
Yeah,
And he came and got in second place.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
The second set came out, and I didn't play a single card from Malcolm Jalara because I was like, at that point, my deck had never lost a single game.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so the person who beat me had experience lost against the Tsunami deck, so he had built some contingencies into his deck for when he faced me in the finals.
Oh, so he built like a deck that was like an anti-tsunami deck.
It wasn't actually; it was more anti another deck, which is called the OTK.
Hmm.
But so every time I played the Tsunami deck, because Sid was talking there, like the Chain Lightnings was originally in the deck, because it has way more damage output than actually Tsunami does, but it targets.
Hmm.
So then I found out that playing non-targeting abilities, there's a lot less defenses for them, and I just eventually every match that I lost, my deck just got even stronger.
Hmm.
So it caught to the point where I won every match and my deck stopped growing. So then I faced another person who I assume pretty much had the same experience as me. He's one of the top players. He was just beating everybody, beating everybody, beating everybody. Comes against me, he's like, oh, this guy, all right, I'll face you. And then he just gets slaughtered. Just
Oh
gets
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
slaughtered.
That's
He was
crazy.
not prepared at
Yeah.
all. And he was literally in shock. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you want to see my deck? And I just pulled out the deck.
Because
That
it's
game's on YouTube.
Oh, really?
I
I'll have to
have that
check that out.
recorded on YouTube.
It's on your YouTube channel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll have to check
It's
that
an
out.
old video.
Because what's great about it
uh,
is it scales with the amount of summons the opponent has. So if the opponent
Yeah,
has 3 summons and you can like position yourself to hit the hero and 3 summons, you just did like
exactly.
12 damage, which is insane. So the only
Yeah,
yeah.
way to counter that is probably like some life gain or like not as many summons or some type of thing. And Nubia seems very interesting where you draw a card every turn and it seems more of a fast win type of deck where
yeah,
you're just trying to like bum rush your opponent versus other decks which would probably play the more long game. So maybe you have to like tire her out in some way. But yeah,
very
like
true.
so when you create this, the well, I guess the second edition with Jalara, the cards were already created. This second printing, but like when you created those cards, how did you like balance them with the rest of it? Did you have to like do like tons of playtesting?
So I'll talk more about Origins because that's going to give you more information. Because second is just a reprint of the other stuff. So Origins is the set plan to come out for the fourth quarter this year.
Hmm.
Uh, and so we have a program that's called Future League, and anyone's allowed to participate. It's primarily right now because of COVID. It's been on tabletop, but we just put in new cards we want to test out, and our future leaguers can test out those cards, tell us what's broken, anything like that. And usually I'm the crazy guy who puts a ridiculous amount into a deck because for some reason people don't want to do that, and I'll be like, "All right, my deck's ready," and it's just 2 cards, 25 of each of them. And and then usually I win, and the guys go, that card's broken," and I'm like, "Oh, well, that's how
Yeah.
you test a
Yeah, that's how you
card."
test.
Um, so speaking a little bit about my background, so before starting this company, I have a degree from University of Toronto in computer science. I specialized in algorithm design. So when I graduated, I went into software testing. I did software testing for about 10 years. That was my specialty. That's my obsession. It's still the thing that I'm sure I could talk someone's ear off about it. I love every aspect of software testing and quality assurance. So when it comes to testing, there's three major things that you got to think about when it comes to testing: your smoke test, your sanity test, and your sandbox testing.
Hmm.
So your smoke tests are like the you know that there's something new that's coming out for your product. So like in a new set, new mechanics or a new way to design a card. Those are areas where you know there could be a fire. So you look for the smoke and you try to test for those. So what you think of those ahead of time, thinking, all right, how will this break a game? And like max min is a good example of that. And then you have sanity tests, which is you have core principles about your game that deem this game being sane or fair or proper, and you have these tests that make sure that it doesn't go insane. So don't put in things that bring things back from the discard pile because apparently that's a big problem in this game. So stuff like that. And then our sandbox testing is where we um, take everything that passed all our internal testing, we put it outside into the players because at the end of the day, the players are the ones who really need to judge the product. So we
Hmm.
give it to them and let them do a lot of testing. And before Alex joined the team, that was the thing he specialized in. He took control of feature league testers, that sandbox experience, and did a lot of that testing. And I love it when people do these absurd things and someone says it's broken. And it's like, is it really though?
So Future League is you guys saying, "Hey, community, this is the cards that we have so far, and you guys can play it through Tabletop Simulator or something, and
Yeah.
just go ham."
Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool. And do
And
you
it's
give out
open
like
to everyone. It doesn't matter if this is your first day playing the game, you haven't even played the game yet, whatever it is, you're welcome to join.
that's beautiful. And do you, I guess you just like don't have card art yet for some of the cards maybe, and do you like give out like different like promo stuff or
I get creative with the art. Let's just say
oh
that.
nice.
Wonderful stick figures. The best stick figures you have ever seen in your
I
life.
can't wait to see that. I'm gonna have to sign up. That
uh,
sounds really funny.
and you're
But
right about the promos.
we do get
We
promos.
actually give our future leaguers, the ones who show high level commitment,
Mhm.
We give them an alternate. Well, we give them reverse art of certain rares. So you just take the artwork, flip it around, print those off, and then they get those as participation for that month.
Yeah.
That sounds really smart because who would know like more about play testing than the players and that kind of off not only does it like give people a preview of stuff especially with the stick figures but it gets people interested and like pre like okay I'm gonna make this deck once the set comes out. That sounds really cool.
And a big thing for us is like one of the biggest issues that happens time and time again for every software tester, every QA is tunnel vision. Eventually, you get to a point where you know the product so well that you're blinded by its flaws. You just
Mm,
assume everything's going to work. Either it's by too much trust in your team to always deliver something that's of quality, it's too much trust in the product to self correct itself. But whatever the issue, eventually, as a tester, you get blinded by that. And this is why we hear this time and time again of like you're playing a video game or something
mhm,
and a new feature comes out and the community says, "Do the people who design this game even play this game? Do they even know what this game's about?" You hear it all the time. And that's why that's happening. They get tunnel vision. They assume that the management, that the developers know what they're doing,
mhm.
and they don't test for those edge cases. They don't advocate for the players. So the best person to advocate for the players are the players. Let them advocate for themselves. Um, we have some people in our Feature League community who are very vocal, and it gives us a lot of opportunities to learn from them. We don't always agree with them,
Mhm.
and that just happens to be the case sometimes. But it's never a downside to hear those opinions. It's just always a challenge to navigate around those opinions sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
See how
sense.
political I can get?
Well, because like you guys probably get like a ton of feedback. Like people say, "Oh, this is broken," or this or that. But like, how do you like filter through it? Do you just have to like see like okay, how many people are complaining about the same thing,
I
or do you have
I
to
got the
like
best answer for this. I got the
yeah?
best I hired Alex.
That's a brilliant answer. Hire someone else to figure it out. Alex, how do you deal with it?
I usually I read it and then I will test it themselves. So let's just say if they believe a card is broken,
Uh
because
huh.
most of the time they will say the card is broken rather than weak.
Hmm.
It's very rare that we have two separate channels to post whether a card's weak or if it's broken. There's
Hmm.
usually conversation in the broken, almost never in the weak section. Now, uh, I'll take, and there is a little bias here, and also I have no problem to say when there's bias or not. I will take the word of the people who are physically testing in Future League more than the people who start to talk but do not test the card.
Mm.
And it happens a
100%.
lot. They'll be like, "This card's broken. It's gonna break the game," and I'm like, "Have you played it?" No. And then I'm like, "Well, I played it many times. It's quite bad. I don't. It's not good."
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. And I think that's a beautiful model. I didn't know you guys did that because then yeah, I mean people can play with the cards. It helps you guys out with like okay, what's the community building and how is the meta? And if you see things too clumped, like everybody's just playing one hero, then you're like maybe need to spread it out a little bit more. But so with Origins, right? The set that's coming out later this year. I know Assad Origins was going to be the name instead of Genesis, if I'm correct.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
you decided to go with Genesis. But when you look it up in the dictionary, they're kind of synonymous. I mean, or Genesis kind of beginning. Is this set going to be more stuff that you had previously like designed, and you just wanted to create like a design space at first, and then you're releasing it here, or and don't don't release anything you don't want public, but just kind of curious
All
about
right.
it.
So let's start with the name Origins.
Hmm.
So we had Origins as a working title for this game since 2002. Why did we change it? Well, all of a sudden I decided, hey, I want to turn this into a company. I want to release this product. We should see what our competitors are doing. And then I realized that there's this giant toy fair called Origins Toy Fair. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great to release there? Then I realized that was one of the founding locations where Magic released their game. I was like,
Oh.
this hurts a little bit. I'm like, all right, maybe I can keep this. Maybe I can keep this. And the Wizards of the Coast decides to release a set. and they call us at Origins.
Oh,
And I was like, nope, I'm done with this.
yeah.
So we did start looking for another names, and it just hit me one day. I like the name Genesis, and I kept it for a long time. I was trying to find an extension because if I were to keep it as just Genesis, I couldn't trademark it. I had to extend it with something else, and that's where the idea, the Battle of the Champions, the idea that they're all coming together. The focus is on this battle against each other. So that was a big that's the name shift, if people are curious.
Mhm.
Random story, but I love
No,
that,
that's a good
because,
story. That explains it right because it like on the website, it explains it, but it doesn't really like that. That makes total sense that
um,
that would be it.
we have so many stories of other games beating us to the punch. Uh, welcome to Wraith, welcome to Jalara.
Hmm.
Um, so Jalara's second edition was originally supposed to be called Jalara Remastered, but then Magic came out with Time Spiral Remastered.
Oh no.
Um, we stuck with Origins because I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
But our set afterwards is called Invasions, which is
I've
also another set of Magic.
I've been saying he should change it. He won't listen to me.
I'm also stubborn about that one. Um, so after a while, you got to also say, you know what? I actually really regret that we changed Jalara from remastered to second edition. I
Mhm.
really wish we stuck with remastered. It was a better name for the it. It's okay if we piggyback off of Magic, because at the end of the day, we also got to do what's right for the game,
Yeah.
and we got to treat the game with respect. And if we're changing something because we're like embarrassed that people think we're copying someone else, well then we're not doing the right thing for the game. So that's definitely one of those things that will go down as a bit of regret. But we got foils, so I'm happy.
Yeah. And the foils
uh,
look really cool with the pictures.
yeah, yeah. As for things that are coming up, there were definitely a lot of little things that I put into this that I advocated for before handing off a lot of the design to Alex. A lot of the champion names, some of the initial stories, but more than that, there are a couple of characters and their mechanics and concepts from the game Origins
Hmm.
that I wanted to translate into Genesis. So we're seeing some of those characters move forward, and I know one of the main characters for the storyline, she's carrying forth like a big. Her name means a lot to me in a lot of different ways. So I'm happy that Alex is a very easy person to work with, and isn't just like when I tell him, "All right, we got to do things like this." He's like, he'll do it compared to being like, "Okay," and then behind my back change things. So
He just
all
hasn't
things.
noticed the changes yet.
Yeah.
So awesome.
He'll notice 3 years
That's
down the
so
line. Wait, when did this get changed?
Oh my goodness. That's
Yeah.
gonna happen one day.
You can get a phone call. But
But I'll be honest, like, I didn't get into starting the company because I wanted to be a game designer. I
mm,
started the company because I wanted to start a company. I just happen to know a lot about this industry, love this industry, and willing to spend 24 hours a day talking about trading card games. But Alex, his passion for actually designing the game, that's uh, I don't know if it supersedes mine, but it comes pretty damn close. Like, this is the like, he's so happy doing it, and, like, that's the thing that you need to have. If he can dedicate his time doing that and let me focus on growing the company, we're golden, right?
yeah, and that seems like it's really important when you're starting a trading card game company or probably any company is you have dedicated members that are solely focused on their own bucket. And I know you said you have like I believe Chris was his name for like the finance side and all that. And it's like you have like, okay, Alex does the mechanics and the set stuff, Assad, you work on the company and business because that, those are full-time jobs and it sounds really crazy. And the design space for the game is really unique as well, I think, because ultimately you're this is all in the land of Jalara, I believe. But that's
Yeah.
like the top right symbol. When do you think you're gonna go? And you don't have to answer this, but when do you think you're gonna go into another region? Is that gonna be like 2022 or and why did you separate it out like that? Was it so you could have like, okay, everything in Jalara is you can only play with Jalara stuff, and only this region can play with that region games? Like, what was the purpose there?
So I want to preface this before I hand it off to Alex. I want to preface it with this is still something that we debate about, but I think we're coming to a really solid understanding of each other's perspective.
Hmm.
But one of the things I love about the team is that we can debate about these things. We can be very passionately on opposing sides, but talk about it logically and then be like, okay, what is right for the game? But yeah, I think Alex. I don't think we have exact dates, but we have announced a lot of the stuff, so I'll let Alex kind of take it over from there.
So I'm just working with what I was given from beta and alpha. No, okay. Yeah, you will definitely see a new symbol at the top right at some point. I'm not giving any dates, especially as how long the printers take. I don't know when any date's gonna be
Acquiring
what.
a paper.
Uh, I can actively say that I can actively say that Origins you won't see a difference. You won't see a change there
Mhm.
because we are still here in J Lara. It's just further up in the map. Um,
Mhm.
but in the future, you definitely will see different things.
That sounds
How
cool.
far out have we told people about different sets?
I
So I
don't
think
know how
Origins
far
and
out we've
Regions
gone.
we've already announced. We already mentioned that here. So um, yeah,
And when there are new regions, are they going to be able to play against heroes or champions, excuse me, from Jalara? Are they gonna? Or
Yeah,
yeah, okay. So you're gonna be able
yeah.
to do that, but only like Jalara specific cards are gonna go to those champions, where another region will have their own region type cards. That sounds really interesting.
yeah. For me, one of the big things is I know people hate set rotations. Like as a player, that's just a thing that it's a thorn in your side. You a lot of times I hear people say that it's because of company greed or that they always want you to buy more products or they expire certain cards.
Yeah.
From a design perspective, and I figured this out like really, really early into designing Origins, like years ago. Um, the m- you need a way to keep the design space manageable
Mm,
because if it starts growing, if the game goes on forever, it becomes really hard to know that this card from here interacts with this card in a broken combo. It's
mm,
hard to keep track of all those things. So if you want to make a very comfortable, competitive, standard type of feel, which allows for all players, veteran and new players, to come in and compete on the same level, some level of cycling has to be in. Otherwise, you're in a situation of reprint. Now,
Mhm.
I'm going to give Flesh of Blood and MetaZoo the benefit of the doubt because I think both of them are talking about they're not going to rotate cards.
mm,
And it's been 30 years since Wizards released Magic. In those years, new designers probably have figured it out. I'm just saying personally, I couldn't see that doing it that way. And to make a game that was more manageable for me, I need to have a way to cycle out cards. So we're still working on what's the best way of cycling out those cards without hurting the player experience, because I
mm.
think that can be fixed. But for me, like I I'm gonna take Yu-Gi-Oh for example. Yu-Gi-Oh
Yeah.
doesn't cycle out cards. Everything's playable from the very first set till now. As a new player jumping into Yu-Gi-Oh, it's a bit of a beast to figure out.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll throw a
and
little shade at Yu-Gi-Oh! It's more than that. They just make sets where 90% of the cards aren't playable. They just make them. You don't play 90% of the cards. You're only there for the rares, just really the super rares and the epics. You buy a
yeah,
box. You're like, did I get that epic or the ultra rare or ghost rare I wanted? No. All right, toss these cards in the garbage can. Buy another box. Those are the only ones playable.
yeah.
And
It's that design space, and I actually learned this from computer science. There's a reason why you see good software. Like take Windows for example.
mhm,
Windows has released so many different versions, and now they're on Windows 10. The only reason why they don't need to make a new version now is because of the advancements in computer science and the way they deploy software and the internet and the cloud. Without those, we would still be in the process of Windows 95, 98. And every now and then they have to release these updates because if you just kept legacy code forever, it there's a term for it. It's called spaghetti code. It's
yeah.
not readable code. So it's the same principles. We need to figure out what we can carry forward in a way that makes the players comfortable with that, but at the same time cleans the design slate enough that we are not having to maintain every single card we ever created uh, in perpetuity.
Yeah. And do you think the main answer that, I think Magic the Gathering has and other trading card games is you just say, we have one format that's everything. We call that legacy. And then just a new format and it just has new cards. So for you guys, it would probably be like, oh, hey, like, let's say the next region's called like, you know, uh, T-Rex. Like everything in T-Rex zone, like that's like now the new format and everything in that new region is that's what this new format is. But then if you want to play another format, you can play any cards. Is that where you're probably going to lean towards, or
We're talking about it. That's all
okay?
I'll say. But
No,
that
no, that's
that
good.
that is my lean. We're
So
talking about it.
we're talking about it, yet somehow still maintaining our friendship.
That's very
Yeah.
fair. Yeah, no, no. And if I ever ask questions, man, please feel free to. Yeah,
I don't
it's in
know.
discussion. But and
The thing is, it's been a long time since I have played TCGs in a competitive format. I have
mhm,
played them as a designer for decades. I play a game for. I actually got two of the Ira decks from Flesh and Blood because I need to play the game and learn its pros and cons and pay respect to the amazing designers that uh, put that game together. Because there's no reason to reinvent the wheel, right? So
yeah,
I have played TCGs as a designer for a long time. Alex has played TCGs as a player, as a store, as a passionate fan, all those different perspectives. And when he's advocating so passionately that this other format needs to exist, some sort of eternal format, I'm like, okay, I got to see that perspective and I got to incorporate it into my design, because at the end of the day, he's an expert at that, right?
mm,
It's like when we went to the printers and they said, don't varnish the top of the foiling of the cards. They're the expert. We should listen to them. I brought Alex onto the team because he's an expert. I got to listen to
yeah.
him. And so not all the time. Don't let that go to your head. Don't let that go to your head.
It's
We're
gonna
not,
be recorded. I'm gonna
no,
take the
no.
clip.
Yeah. You just put it on a loop. Oh, that's awesome.
But at the same time, like, what's the point of having a team if you're not going to listen to them, right?
Oh, totally. And I think getting into a brand new topic, and what I found fascinating about the whole board state, right, is that it really enters into like, different things moving around. And when I looked at it, I was like, could there be a PvE kind of aspect to this? And what do you think about the concept of you have three players on one, where the one player's has this like giant like amorphous blob and they have like some crazy ass deck that's like pre-constructed and they're able to do stuff to like just an insane amount of power, and then you have other three be champions. Do you see that in and if no comment is the answer, I'm totally good with that.
Oh, there are comments. There are comments galore.
Oh, okay.
Alex, talk about your D&D.
Well, we've done sort of a D&D where we use the cards itself within the D&D itself.
Really?
Yeah.
I loved it. It was so much fun.
That sounds
Like,
really good because the cards are already there. Because when you're playing D&D, I've played a lot of games in the past, and yeah, always need like the card art and like the figurines. But with your game,
Mhm.
you can just say, "Oh, I have like three hounds. I'll just put them on the map, and it does this amount of damage." That's cool.
yeah. Um, oh, there's been so many casual formats played. We play one called Maps where we take the arena, which is normally 5 by 6, we
Hmm.
extend it by another 6 squares. Then we take 6 pieces of terrain from the store's Warhammer collection, and then we occupy 6 spots at the very beginning. So 3 players, each person gets 2 pieces, and they put them on the board. And now those spots are considered like empty squares on the board. You can't move onto them, can't attack them, can't do anything with them.
Hmm.
And then you have this dynamic shifting terrain. There are so many other formats to explore, but for me personally, as a company, we haven't finished designing or solidifying ourselves in the standard format. That's
Yeah.
why there aren't any official rules published anywhere for booster drafts, for sealed, for anything like that. Even though we've done them, I've hosted booster drafts, so many of them.
Oh, you
But
you can
in
draft with the booster packs.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That sounds cool.
It's pretty awesome. But we've done it so many times, but until we get those standard rules solidified, I don't want to confuse the community. I don't want to pigeonhole our rule set in any particular way for other to make other formats work.
Mm.
And so, but I definitely love the idea of where we done 2v1, and that one player just has extra health or extra resources or however you want to do it. You have like that boss fight mode, and it's really cool.
That sounds really neat. And I didn't even think about it now until you just said it. Like you could have like 2v2 or 2v3 and you have a 5 by 6 grid and you just open that shit up. Make it like
Yeah,
a 10 by 12 and you just there you
yeah,
go. I mean,
yep,
and that's what I really like about your game is you have a lot of bedrock that is really good. You just have all your stuff into place and the design space is really, limitless for a lot of stuff because with the whole grid aspect, it does make things a little complicated. It does make things a little harder to learn, but it opens you up to so many more niches with like the D&D aspect and the strategy aspect and now you're kind of technically a board game in a way. There's a board. So
yep,
that's what I think is beautiful and I really like that response too. It's like, you're focusing on your core game and I think, that's perfect. You got to focus on the core game and then, a couple years down the line, you get market, and then you're like, oh, let's explore this. So that's really cool. Is there any other types of different like formats or types like that you're looking into?
So there was one that Sid was working on for a while, where it was a PVE, the tower system one. Uh, if you want to talk about that one, where
What's
you'd
the
have to
tower?
find the
Oh
another
yeah.
level.
Oh, that was super cool. Why did I abandon that? Oh yeah, I had a job to do. All right. So the way it worked was I wanted to incorporate the idea of kind of a dungeon crawler, but not like kind of like a Diablo-esque type of dungeon crawler situation,
Hmm.
along with a leveling system. So the idea
Ooh.
was uh, you had six treasure pieces put down on the board face down,
Hmm.
and on top of them were creatures. Uh, and you would go and type kind of like probe that spot, and when you probed it, the creature would flip over and instantly attack you. And if you could survive the attack and kill them, the card underneath would flip. And that could be, it could be a surprise. It could be another creature. It could be more aura or more health, or it could
Uh-huh.
be the tower. And if you found the tower and you destroyed the tower, then you went on to the next level. And the thing was, there was four levels. Each of them had a tower. And then once you beat all four towers, you got to the final boss and you defeated them. However, you're on a clock as you go. So when you
Oh.
start the first dungeon, you roll a d6, and that's how many turns you have to find the tower and destroy it. And then on the next round, you roll like a d8, and it just escalated and got a little bit more intense because there were more difficult creatures. And your aura and your health didn't reset as you went from level to level. So if you spent all your aura in the first dungeon to find that tower really quickly and destroy it, well
Uh-huh.
then you have no aura left for the next dungeon. Uh,
Oh.
yeah, it was really cool, and part of that is because part of the game is modeled after Diablo.
Mm.
So if you could imagine Diablo being in a board game shape, you could take a lot of the elements from Genesis and just plug that in. It's already there. So if you ever played board games like Descent or
Hmm.
oh, there's another one that was on my mind, but I can't remember. Where it is more of that Diablo RPG miniature type of feel. Uh, Genesis just fits perfectly in there.
We, you,
Uh,
you know, this type of thing, that made me think, what if you made a roguelike type thing where you start off with like 10 cards and then every level, if you defeat the monsters, you get like an extra like card and you can pick from like three and like you shuffle a deck and then you flip three and then you get to pick one and add it to your new deck. And yeah, at the end you fight a monster like a roguelike trading card game because roguelikes are huge. Like I don't
yeah,
personally like them as much, but I just know there's a huge market for them.
yeah.
And is that kind of
So,
sounds like your tower thing, right? Where
yep,
you go through the levels and then you
yeah,
get different equipment or cards along the way. That sounds cool.
yeah. It was that's literally it, and I was designing it for a while because what happened was when COVID hit, for the first little while, I was trying to figure out how can people play the game by themselves at home
Yeah.
with whatever card pool they had, right? So it wasn't that you needed a special card pool to get this. You just had to take your current card pool, figure out who your champion was. So if you're playing Nubia, all your Bell and Axon cards went into your shop pool that you
Hmm.
could buy from and get better cards from, and then all your Thymos Chaos cards would go into the dungeon pool, and those would become the bad guys that you had to face as you went through.
Mm.
So how do we use your current card pool so that you could do something with the game when you're sitting at home by yourself? Uh, and then, yeah, I couldn't fully finish that design, which is unfortunate, but I think the foundation's there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the foundation's there, and you built out like the core game right now, which was a smart focus. But yeah, no, I mean, I could definitely see that because there's this board game Mage Knight, and you could have like a one player version. I played that a couple times, and that was interesting. But I can definitely see it, and that's what's beautiful about Genesis is yeah, there is that design space with the grid and all. Um, if I could hop back to production, when you produce the game, right? You obviously have a cost per booster box. Is it tough to market it to the distribution network and have like, is there a certain like profit margin that they want, or do they like, look, guys, we want like 50% or we want like 20%, and then I know they have to get a cut, but then also the stores have to get a cut. And Alex, you probably know more about that. Like,
Yep.
how do you know like what percentage cut each person gets? And you know, take your time with the answer. You don't have to go too in detail.
Alex, you had a very special grin on your face. Is there something you want to say?
No. It's just funny because he said, dealing with distributors. That's the first step is talking to distributors if they want to talk to you.
Yeah. So the other thing that we shouldn't forget is that Alex does have a lot of knowledge with distributors on both ends because of his wife's company. So
Oh, with the
trying
dice.
to pitch to distributors, it's he had a lot of experience with that, which was very comforting at times when I felt like a failure. And he was like, "No, it's hard. It is really hard." So yeah, when I first started off of pricing the product, I talked to the retail stores. So there were three stores I talked to very closely with. Alex was one of them, and it's like, what price do you think we should be selling the product at?
Mm,
What do you think we should be doing? And as we grew, we kept on talking to all the stores because I say we, but it was I was talking to all the stores, and at the end of the day, again, it's the whole thing of um, you're if you're not a specialist in something, don't assume that you are. So the retail stores, the store owners are specialists in retail. So let me talk to them, figure out their perspective on what makes sense.
mm,
So for a long time, I had an MSRP because that's what everyone asked for. And then I talked to one store, and he was like, "Oh, we're really close to another one of your stores, and not that they would do this, but we've gone into bidding wars with other stores and had to lower our prices, and then we lose a profit margin. You should look into doing something called a map."
mm,
Where it's all the stores agree that this is the lowest we'll ever sell this product. And then as a company, we have to work on reinforcing that. So I kept on learning new things as I grew. As for working with distributors, what was it, 3, 4 years of the company? They straight out said no, never, we'll never touch your product. We're not interested. Um, you're in the TCG space. Don't be in this space.
and
Start
that must be
making announcements.
tough.
It was very tough. But my mentor, great guy, he kept on telling me, um, just keep pushing, keep working hard, and eventually they'll turn around and start asking you for the product.
Mm.
Which is what we're seeing this year, which is really cool. We were very blessed. We found one person who said yes, and
Oh, nice.
he ended up helping us get into all the other distributors and push the product and work and grow. And it was just luck, but it's also actually Alex and I had this conversation in the car ride. I have never become more religious than when I started this company. Like, there's so many things that happen in my life due to this company that I'm like, it can't be luck or coincidence. There has to be some holy hand guiding me through all this because uh, everything just seems to It may seem terrible in the moment, and I'll get really frustrated and get really angry at times, but in the long run, whatever happened has always been for the right purpose. So a lot of those distributors that weren't interested in our product before,
Hmm.
now they're reaching out to me being like, "Don't sell to any other distributor. You gotta become
Ooh,
exclusive with us," and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, "Yo,
you can't
where were
make
you
me.
2 years ago?" Right? Like,
Yeah.
now we have the upper hand in these conversations.
Wow.
And uh, yeah, it's a very different experience. As for margins, like I was saying, we're not experts, so we ask the distributors. We have, like I said, that one contact person. He was the first one who brought us on. He's
Hmm.
the one who guides us through all this. Whenever we have any questions about distribution that we don't know, we just give him a call and he'll chat with us, let us know what's his opinion on it, and then we go from there.
Gotcha.
So
And are you currently just in Canada, or are you in the Canada and US distribution?
So we have partnerships with 3 distributors in Canada, 4 distributors in the US, and as of right now, we have locked with 2 distributors in the EU,
Oh,
and there are 2
nice.
more that are like waiting for the sample product, play the game, and figure out how the market's growing. But yeah,
So
yeah.
when it rains,
So
it pours, I guess, right? Because now it's like the doors are open. That's awesome. And so,
we've been very blessed.
yeah, that's awesome to hear, guys. And so when you get into distribution, like you print all the product right at once. You keep it. Did you have to like buy a warehouse, or do you just keep this in your house, like stacked to the ceiling, or?
It started off at my dad's place. So he was very supportive and it was
Hmm.
said, instead of buying a warehouse, I have all the kids have moved out. A lot of these rooms aren't being used to store your product here. And then we got distribution, and then all the product went bye bye.
Oh, because
Very, very
they send it from the printers to distribution.
like it went from my dad's place to the distributors,
Hmm.
and now the product's gonna be going straight from the manufacturer to the distributors.
Oh, that's
We'll have
perfect.
some product that will intercept more or less we'll take for ourselves as in like for marketing purposes. So selling into the US and into the EU, you
Hmm.
need to get a lot more certifications than you do in Canada. So if it's a product manufactured in Canada, you can sell to Canada with very little concern. But once
Mm.
you and same even in the States, they're less concerned if it's manufactured in Canada. But in the EU, they're very, very strict on products that are sold to anyone who's 14 years or younger.
Hmm.
And so for them, we have to take some of our products, send it off to a testing lab. They'll make sure there's no harsh chemicals in it. It doesn't combust in flames, things like that. And then once we get that certification, then the product can be safely distributed in the EU.
Does it cost a lot of money, and does it take a long time to distribute to the EU with all those like the red tape? Like how long of a
Everything
process?
costs money.
Oh, it did.
Everything
Yep.
takes time and money, my friend.
Yeah.
Everything. Um, it's more expensive than I thought it was gonna be, I'll say that much, and it takes way more time than I ever thought it would take. So it's definitely been a challenge, but the nice part is the European community has been so excited and supportive.
Hmm.
Uh, so we see comments. Red Zone Rogue put up a Genesis video just the other day,
Hmm.
and in their video, there was a few people from who we know are creating content in Europe watching it and being like, "Yeah, I'm so happy that there's more Genesis content over here." And then we now have a how to play video in German. If you know any German,
That's
you can go learn
awesome.
how to play from there. So we've been getting a lot of support everywhere.
That's great. And yeah, well, it's funny to hear that too, because that's another little thing that at me as a consumer, I don't know. I'm like, oh, they're a company, they're going to Europe. That's great. They probably just ship their product there. But no, 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 no. Like on the back end, it's more of like all this red tape, and you have to do this testing, and it seems like a process. But now, do you think you've grown like a lot? And I want to preface this with, I know that the TCG realm has been just fire lately. Like Pokemon is on fire, Yu-Gi-Oh, all this stuff is selling. How do you think that has like contributed to your game? Do you think a lot more people have like gone on like got an interest in other games and then like come to you?
I want to hear Alex's opinion on that.
I think it has allowed people to look at more games.
Mm.
Because definitely, if you were looking, even, like honestly, not too long ago, what is the newest game that really sprung up?
Medicine.
No, no, no.
Metazoo,
So I'm saying before. I'm saying before Metazoo, Flesh and Blood. Before this, before COVID. Let's talk before COVID. What was the newest game to start
Transformer.
up? Transformers, maybe. If
yeah,
that's dead.
Transformers. There's a new
The
Digimon that was
Vanguard.
hot.
Digimon during COVID.
Oh,
Vanguard's been a
Vanguard.
lot longer, but that's like your closest thing. It's really not
Vanguard.
much.
hmm
All these new games have only sprung up during COVID. It's the because people have now had time to literally watch videos and learn new things, get out of their comfort zone. Yeah.
Um, from my perspective, like I am really, really excited about the fact that the TCG space has grown. That's awesome. It's been due for a renaissance for a long time. Um, Red Zone Rogue actually did a video about that. I'm like, are we in this kind of renaissance for TCGs?
Oh yeah,
I
I saw
completely
that.
agree. Like, it's a great conversation to have there. However, there's a new perspective in it. So the people who are in this space, know that Magic cards have been increasing in value for years, right?
hmm
The value of Black Lotus between early 2000s to now, it's crazy, right? But it was still always a niche product. It
hmm
wasn't until Pokemon's value started increasing that the general community knew what it was, because this industry has always been at the quieter end of things. There was there have been some mentions of it in pop culture. Even Brooklyn Nine-Nine, there's a little like joke about playing Magic the Gathering,
Oh
but it's
yeah.
always been a small little niche segment. But then this during COVID, Pokemon blew up, and because of Pokemon Go, the Pokemon movie, children, everyone knows what Pokemon is. If I talk to the average parent and I'm saying, I'm telling them about my company and what I do, I'm like, I'm in the same space as Magic the Gathering. They're like, oh, I've never heard of that. I'm in the same space as Pokemon, the trading card game. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, I know that, I know that.
Yeah.
Pikachu, right? I'm like, yeah, Pikachu.
Well, yeah,
Not
and
me.
it seems like, I think Logan Paul was a big, contributor to getting a lot of people on board and a lot of other content with box opening and all this stuff with Pokemon. But it really has changed a lot of people's perception of like, this isn't just a trading card game for kids. This is a collectible that retains value and has monetary value long term, which is very interesting. And something funny about your game is you are a CCG, a collectible card game, and not a TCG, but you can obviously trade the cards. But what what I really had to do a double take on is I looked at your alpha print and it said 256 packs. That is like nothing. That is packs, right?
I've been
Uh,
telling Sid to print more for forever, to be honest.
the only reason I haven't is because beta was an essentially a reprint.
Yeah.
So on a gameplay perspective, there's no reason to print alpha and beta. They're essentially the only difference is one card, and that one card is banned in alpha and is not banned in beta. So why would I reprint a product that has a banned card where beta doesn't have that banned card?
Yeah.
I
No,
understand from a collecting perspective,
no,
but
no, no, no. This is a good thing. No, no, this is not a bad thing. This is an amazing thing as a collector. Because when you look at that, that's probably the lowest print run I've ever seen on any alpha set. So as a collector, that's extremely attractive. Because when I own different alpha cards, I know that whoa, like I can do the math and back into how many of these exist, and it's pretty freaking low. Like I actually did buy a bunch of alpha cards. I want to show you guys. I have an alpha Chrono Walker.
I
And
know
that's
you got it from me.
oh, did I get it for you?
and,
oh,
and as
oh,
soon as you got that, I was like, "Oh no, he bought that!"
all right. This there's a
Oh,
deeper
that's your
joke here.
store. That's on your. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, it just
So,
arrived today.
so I reached out to you saying, I heard people in the community were mentioning your name, right?
Uh huh.
Uh, the person who told me about you was my brother, and you are
Really?
asking him about Alpha product.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's too funny. That's
So my
crazy.
brother messages me, and he's like, someone's asking me about the price for Alpha cards. where could I look at the prices for singles? And I point them to Alex's store.
Oh, that's too funny.
This was meant to be like this was.
Because Alex, you're
Yeah,
the only one out there selling alpha singles. Like, there's literally no other store. There's no
it's
eBay.
because
There's no
they're
eBay
impossible
sold.
to get.
They're
I can't
impossible to
get it.
get.
Like I said, I started at beta. That's why when I started, I was like, "You got any alpha?" And he's like, "Nope." I was like, "Ah." And like,
But
you got that. And I honestly, I think that Chrono Walker is a steal. Like I said, if I had another one, it would be at 80 to 120 bucks at the minimum.
Oh yeah,
At
it's
the
40
minimum,
bucks.
yeah.
And honestly, what I
uh,
want to do, I want to like, I was thinking of creating a deck of alpha. That would be pretty cool, even if it was with like jank. It'd be fun.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
wanted to set collect, so I'm trying that out, and we'll see how well that goes. But I have a full complete set of beta. But that's too funny. I bought it from you, Alex. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
uh, yeah, and it's so the two stores that bought Alpha product, like bought those booster packs and starter kits and all that stuff, they're two, I think, the only two stores I can think of off the top of my head who don't do e-commerce. Like they don't sell
Oh.
singles online. So they do have the Alpha cards. It's just all sitting in binders, and you have to go
Yep.
to that store. So
I'll
yeah.
have to reach out to him. That's crazy. Oh, but
Remember, I was store three, not 1 and 2, so I didn't get any alpha.
just missed the cut.
That
Yeah.
has no, actually, I think you're store 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Phoenix and Kitchener was store 3, because they signed up in November, then you signed up in March, and there was no store in between there, so you were store 4. But
Okay.
Phoenix was an interesting story. I went there, I did the demo, I hooked them up with, their initial beta collection, all this kind of stuff, and gave them some singles so that they can start a secondary market in the store and get players connected, and then one of their players reaches out to me and is like, "I can't get any singles for this game." I'm like, "Well, the store should have some." I offered as part of a bundle to help them, like kickstart their community. I
Mhm.
gave them some singles to sell to the community, and he's like, "No, the store owner won't sell those." And I was like, "Well, that's not my problem, then, is it?"
Oh, he didn't
Like,
want to sell the alpha cards?
he had beta at that
Oh,
time,
beta,
but
yeah.
yeah, he just wouldn't let go of them, and I was like, "Oh, well then."
It's good the store
Good.
owner liked them then. I mean, that's that's funny that the player's like, "Hey, I want to play. I just I can't buy them." Oh
Yeah.
man. Oh man. But so yeah, honestly, I really like that bedrock of the game. I like how in the early days, like the alpha beta cards look very desirable and collectible, and especially beta. It's nice that you just buy a box and you have the whole complete set. I'm gonna put that in a binder. It's gonna look really cool. But yeah, when you I'm trying to think of where to go next, but like when you make these card games, right? When you make the game, actually, I have no idea what I'm going to say. I'm going to have to cut this off and re-edit. Any
Okay.
Okay.
funny story you guys have with creating the game? I know we've gone pretty long. I'll wrap it up in a bit.
I'm sure there's a million of them. It's just, you put us on the spot. It's difficult.
Oh, I feel you, man.
Uh, I remember one of the cool things was, really early on. It was actually, the first day of sales. I show the game to somebody. He loves it. He buys a copy of the Alpha Starter Kit, goes home, builds a deck, comes back, plays against me, loses. But as a consolation prize, I give him a pre-alpha Angel of Retribution, which is one of the most played cards in the game.
Wow.
Um, and a few years later, someone in our community is looking for the Angel. Like they need the Alpha Angel to finish off the collection. So
Hmm.
I'm reaching out to the people. I'm reaching out to this one guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't have that anymore. I'm sure I just threw it away somewhere." I'm like, "Oh."
Oh no.
Yeah. It's just one of those stories, right? It's we actually have those stories of people who like got rare cards or special promos and just threw them away.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
yeah,
crazy thing about,
yeah,
people don't understand that when they're looking at collectibles, years down the line. They're like, why would they throw that away? But there is
yeah.
there is a bit of attrition with everything.
It's kinda like that Chrono Walker, where it's like, a lot of people I don't think understand, how valuable or how rare some of those alpha stuff is, because when Alex was talking to me about the Chrono Walker, I was like, "Wait, how many do I have?" And being the creator of the game, I only own 5 alpha Chrono Walkers.
Oh wow.
So I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That's a pretty rare card at that point.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
when you first sold them, I mean, you said you had like 8 or 9 like booster boxes of just alpha.
Mm. Oh no, when I actually first started selling the game, the only
Hmm.
thing I had was Alpha Starter Kit.
Oh wow.
Uh, those are the only cards that existed in print. There were a few cards as prototypes. So the angel, we had some angels that were prototype angels. They still had the trademark. They're still technically tournament legal because
Hmm.
our rule is that if you can find Genesis cards with the actual trademark on the Genesis logo on the back, those are tournament legal. If it doesn't have that trademark, it's not. Those are pre-print or like too far back as prototypes. So, but really, we launched the game with just the starter kit. No boost packs, not even 8 champions, just 4 champions in the
Hmm.
alpha starter kit. Uh, and it was if it wasn't for the fact that the product sold so well, we wouldn't have continued. But we sold out on almost all our inventory that weekend. We're like, all right, let's keep going. Let's finish off this set. So the last 4 champions, so Rain, Kendra, Fong, and Long, came out months later. And then they came out actually so close to beta that I was actually thinking not to print them. And then
Mm.
Alpha, the booster packs actually came out in waves. The first set of booster packs only had 2 rares. I think of the 90 card set, only 27 cards were done.
Hmm.
Uh, and then the second packs had like 35 of the 90 cards, and the next one had 50. Next one had 65, and then finally we had the full 90. So when we got to the point where we had the full 90 cards done, and we're releasing packs, we only had 8 or 9 boxes of those. Those ones were the ones that were really short supply. But prior to that, we didn't even have boosted boxes. They were just individual packs that were printed, and
Oh
we printed
wow.
them like 20 at a time, and
That's
that was it.
nuts.
Yeah.
And I know Flesh and Blood, what they do is they have these like gold foil cards for like people who win like big tournaments. Do you guys have something similar to where if somebody, wins the tournament, they get like a certain like promo card that's like pretty low print? And how do you guys deal with that? Because I know you guys have the we talked about the machines earlier, and they had the 5 machines. One's the placebo, and the other 4 actually do something. But like, how do you print stuff that's very limited on like different like the printing plates? Do you have to like put a printing plate just for a card, and then it's like you only print it like 200 times, or how does that thing go?
Uh, all right, let's talk about the first part of the question, the
Yeah.
winners for the tournament. Um, so one thing I learned really early on about designing is that I do not like the idea of printing off promo cards that are e- exclusive. Like they're unique, functionally unique cards that are in short supply.
Totally
We
agree.
released a card called Sky the Storm Dragon. Not a great card, but people were so frustrated when the championship came around because only a handful of people had this promo, and it was tournament legal. Uh, and it was actually Alex's idea of being like, "What in the next set? Why don't you just print off a card that's functionally the exact same, just rename it something else?" So the promos maintain their value, but people who didn't get the promos don't feel left out.
Mm.
And that's where Zamber Dragon came in. Uh, we did give the championship winner in 2019 the opportunity to design a card. So what
Wow.
you'll see is when you get to raise, starting in raise, at the bottom of the card, it tells you who the artist is on the left side, but on the right side, it tells you who the game designer was, the person who created the concept. So there's one card in that set created by Steve O'Terrell. He was the championship winner. He designed that card. It's his, and that's awesome. In the future, I think what's our plan? We're gonna let championship winners make champions, right?
Being a champion, yeah.
Yeah. So
That
they get to
sounds
make
so
a
cool.
champion, test it out, commission the artwork, help integrate their story into the lore, as much as we can do without like spoiling our entire game design process. Uh, because there's a lot that goes behind the scenes for making a champion. I think
Mm.
Alex's your first task was making a champion, wasn't
Yeah, yeah.
it? That took a while. Took quite a while.
That sounds really
Uh,
tough because you have to look
but
at all the cards available and make sure it balances with everything, all the other champions. Yeah.
yeah, so I would personally, I would never make a functionally unique promo that is in super short print run. Uh, and my philosophy, and not everyone has to agree with this, but my philosophy is I don't know if that's healthy for the state of the game.
Mm,
And for me, the most important thing that should always be held up at the highest standard is the game, the quality of the game. Then collectability can come second,
yeah.
but the game has to come first. Uh, is there anything I'm missing there?
No, I
No,
don't
I
think
don't think
so.
so.
Because I
Yeah.
But
mean,
I don't know about Flesh, but is it a unique card or is it specifically like a gold-plated version of like the heroes?
it's a
Do you know?
gold-plated version of the equipment, but the equipment, let's say, there's this one called Spring Tunic, Fandale Spring Tunic. You can get the same card for like $200, but then they have
Mhm.
these gold, bordered cards that are worth like I don't know, like 10, 15,000 because you can only get them if you are a champion of the game. Like if you win one of these calling events, like these big events, and they're
Yeah,
like very short supply. And I think they printed a
that's
ton.
doable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
In
like
under our premise, because we're
yeah.
have no problem with the glam and the glitz, as
Yeah.
long as regular people can still get them, we're fine with it. Yeah.
As long as the card is still easy enough to get it, or in its appropriate rarity in the actual booster packs, and it doesn't interrupt the quality of the game, then that's fine.
Yeah.
As for printing that, so again, trust your manufacturing company because they know what they're doing. They've been in there for years, and if you're working with a company that doesn't know how to do that stuff, then um, I mean at that time you start questioning things a little bit. Um, so if I wanted to do something like that, I'll just call them up and say, "This is what I want to do. How much would it cost? How difficult would it be?" And to the best of my ability, I would watch the process because that way, the better you understand the terminologies they use, because they're not going to talk in your terminology. They
Mm.
have their own like shorthand or conversation. In our case, a different language because they all talk French. So the better you can understand what they're saying and talk in their own language, it's the better it is because then your request is easier to duplicate in the future.
Mm.
Uh, that specific like have you ever seen the 2019 Gold Stamp champions that we have?
Oh, no, I haven't seen those yet.
So when we released beta, we did a promo with them, which is just underneath the banners. It just says 2019, and it's just Gold Stamp. If
Mm.
it's something like that, where it's a decorative like gold border, you can send the manufacturer um, a file, what vector file for that. They will create a custom plate, and then they'll just use that plate and stamp it down on each card.
Oh,
So they can
manually like this?
they have a machine that can do it, but if it's a really short print run or very specific, they might do it manually.
Mm.
It depends on the requirement. And then as for short print runs, so for anyone who plays Genesis and has collected these promos, if you look at the championship Angel Retribution, the finish on that is different than the other ones, and the reason
Mm.
behind that is doing short print runs and large print runs. The manufacturing process is completely different. Short print runs works a little bit closer to using a regular inkjet printer. They put in this giant sheet of paper into a printer, and yeah, it just prints it.
Wow.
Because that is so much more cost effective than making plates, which go into these giant machines, which stamp onto the sheet of paper. Uh, because the cost to just make those plates and turn on the machine for the giant print run is about, I think they quoted me somewhere in the neighborhood about $800 to $900.
Oh, wow.
So that's how much burn that they need to spend just to start your project. And that's not a short amount. And then you got to think about the labor that goes into it. You're paying people's salary, so you could be paying a few thousand just to turn the machine on. But with doing like something like a laser printer, that's just send it to the printer. It's done, right? Control P.
Yeah.
So uh, for the short print runs, they use a different card stock. They use a different printer. It finishes different. It cuts different. Everything about the process is different.
That sounds really cool because I was under the assumption that maybe when you're printing a new set, you just bake it in. You know, you bake in the promos all in there, but doing it separately sounds good because then you can like, adjust. But
It depends on what your goals are. So, with Beta, J, no, not with J, but Beta and Raise, we baked in promos on some of the sheets where there's empty
oh,
slots
nice.
because the other side to this, oh, the other side to this entire industry that no one talks nearly enough about is
I want to
how
hear.
environmentally terrible this industry is. From getting the paper, or like harvesting the paper, the printing process,
Hmm.
and then just players and stores recycling. Like how just I'll throw it to you. Do you know the recycling process for each part of the product? Which products can go in recycling and which ones have to get sent to a special plant to be recycled?
I have no idea. I mean, I know my booster boxes and wrappers go to the trash. So when you look at that aspect as a consumer,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a ton of,
So the
yeah.
boxes need to go into recycling. The overwraps in certain states and certain provinces will go into recycling. Other ones will go into garbage. And the individual cards, again, it comes down to your city and where the recycling plant is. Sometimes they go into garbage. Sometimes they go into recycling. And then the printers can be environmentally harmful. Everything about it is just terrible. So when I learned this, and I realized, oh, we have empty slots on some sheets, we double up and we're like, okay, let's have as little waste as possible. So we put in all the promos there and we just plan things in advance. With
Mm,
some of the promos we threw in there, we're like, we don't know if we'll ever use this, but let's just get them printed
yeah, might
and
as
then
well.
use them in the future, right?
If there's a blank
Because it's better
slot,
to have them, right?
mine
Yeah.
as well. And oh, one big thing is once it does print with these five different things, right? And you have a sheet of printed, and I'm sure one machine cuts it as well into the rectangles and everything. How does it put it into the packs and into the boxes? Is it like a big sorting hat machine where it like filters everything? And with your new set Origins, you have a rainbow foil too, so that's an extra slot. Are there like slots that are feeded in?
You're not wrong.
Oh,
You're actually pretty close. Yeah, yeah. It's a machine called a long form.
a
It'll
long
have
form.
like Um, you have these giant kind of like card holders, you can imagine. And there's like, I'd say 15, 20 of them, a whole
Yeah.
bunch of them. And then it's like, for us, our packs are going to go commons, uncommons, rares, commons again.
Hmm.
So 4 of the slots are those. But then uncommons can be upgraded to epic rares. So beside the uncommon slot will be the epic rare slot, and then the commons can be upgraded to foils. So it goes now common, foil, uncommon, epic, rares, commons, and then there's just a machine that keeps track of all these. So the first one will shoot out 4 cards. Then the
Uh-huh.
next one will be skipped. Then the next one will shoot out 4 cards. And the next one shoots out 2 cards. Whatever, right?
Hmm.
They program it in, and then when they tell them things like, all right, one in every 7 packs, you replace your uncommon with an epic. Well, then in that 7th pack, the it'll shoot out 3 uncommons and 1 epic, and then it shoots out the 2 rares.
Are the
So
tubes
it's
vertical like this, or are they like horizontal like this and like shoot out?
it's kind of like this,
Uh-huh.
and then the cards just kind of drop down
That's
into
crazy.
a feeder. Yeah,
And there's
so
a
it is a big machine.
and there's like five different feeders that you feed different rarity of cards in, right?
Yeah, we're using I think 6, 7, something like that, but
Yeah.
they have the capacity to go up to like 20. So
Oh,
in
20, that's
cases
crazy.
like, yeah, upper deck, they might have like really crazy requirements, like Flesh and Blood has, where 1 per case. So that
Yeah.
has to be its own feeder. And then other rarities. Each rarity level has to be its own feeder. So every time you have a deviating rarity level, you have to create a new feeder and program that in.
Yeah, because some games too, they have the algorithms, right? Where it's like maybe print sheets are different, where it's not like the same like three print sheets. You like vary it up, so you don't get like booster packs with the same like consistency. Do you guys do that with your sets?
So actually, so you had some fun opening beta boost packs.
Yeah.
Did you notice something in particular about the beta boost packs?
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice. It was completely nice as a collector because I had literally I had my bed right here, and I had the card listing like 1 through 81, and I was like, oh, awesome, they're in order, and like they're in order in like different slots. I was like, oh, this is so easy. This is awesome. Honestly, it was a great experience as a set collector because it is such a bitch to like go around and like find like the different things. But yeah, I did notice that in the beta.
Uh, so apparently, if you don't tell the printers or the manufacturers that the cards need to be randomized,
Uh
they won't randomize them.
huh.
So that was a lesson learned. So for beta, they didn't randomize it.
hmm
For J, they randomized it. Once
hmm
I learned how they were randomizing it, I took it over for Rays. I made some mistakes. I think second edition is gonna be a lot cleaner for that. But it's actually randomized on the sheets. And then yeah, you could have multiple different sheets and tell them these need to go in order. And that does add a level of complexity that needs to be done on the manufacturing end. So you might be paying for that in the long run. But if it's the quality that you need, then it's worth the cost, right?
Gotcha. Because, well, how do you randomize it if there are plates? Because if there are plates, it's like a preset area.
Mhm.
Is it after they're cut and then they're put into? There's like another machine that like shuffles it up and then it puts it into the other. No.
It's randomized on the sheet. So yes,
Wow.
the sheets are consistent, but you'll notice this with any game. After a long enough period of time, you'll see the same order of things. So you might see a particular run for the commons that these three commons are always together.
Oh,
And 20 packs later, it'll be the same three commons or something like that. It's because uh, it is ra- uh, it is randomized. It's randomized onto the sheet, but the sheets stay the same as you go on.
that's
Uh,
so
so
interesting.
yeah, you'll find that like uh, I know when we started opening up raised boxes, there were some issues where people were getting duplicates of the same rare inside the box and complaining about it. Some people were complaining, some people were excited, some people were complaining that they didn't get boxes with the duplicates. Um,
Some people
but
were happy,
whenever
like Alex, and like, oh, I got two Chrono Walkers. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when we started seeing that, we're trying to figure out what happened, and then we could literally map it. We can grab the uncut sheet, put it down, and be like, okay, they started here. We would expect them to have this rare, this rare, this rare, this rare, this rare, and just go through the entire thing. So it's semi-randomized. Uh, it's I think it's just one of those limitations of what we're trying to do as an industry. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just a interesting process that one day I'm gonna have to go to one of these facilities and see how it all works on the back end because you guys have actually seen the machines, which is really cool. I
I love
think
it.
to wrap it up at the end, like, what do you guys think is the most rewarding thing about doing what you're doing?
Analytics.
Oh, I think it'll be different for each of us.
Probably.
I personally, I love to create. I'm a big D&D guy. I love world building. I love designing. So that's my love. Um, yeah, that's enough said.
I think the most rewarding there's so much about this that's rewarding. Uh, I don't know how to narrow it down to one thing. At this moment, the thing that stands out the most to me is the fact that I have an opportunity to impact an industry that has given me so much over the years.
Mm.
My like growing up, vocabulary that I learned through Magic, math that I learned through Yu-Gi-Oh. Um, but all these like different hard skills that I learned growing up, I now have the opportunity to give that back. So and the other great part about it is all those people who did not think I would be able to make it this far. Oh my goodness. When I
That's
started this, the amount of people who are like, yeah, just make an LCG, just make a board game. You can't do this. And it's like, I don't know how much longer we'll have, but I'm gonna run this as long as I can, and it's gonna be awesome every step of the way.
Yeah, man. I mean, you guys have made you're making a really great game, and I mean, it just shows in the card art and everything you're doing, and I think that the bedrock of the game is super valuable. I mean, there's so much design space you can go into, and honestly, I've been really enjoying collecting it, and look forward to playing it soon. But it seems like hopefully I I understand the grasp of what's going on. But I really appreciate your time, guys, today. Let's what is it? Uh, what do you see to come for Genesis? Like what's coming up with Origins and everything? If you do a plug.
Alex, you can give one spoiler.
What spoiler? What spoiler am I giving? Oh, I'm the worst when you do this type of thing. Is no, all right, a spoiler. Like, you want how big you want the spoiler?
It's up to you. It's your set.
That's
Or
we're
preview,
talking about
yeah.
Origins, eh? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
I could do quantity of champions.
Go for
Oh,
it.
okay.
All right, in Origins there will be 12 new champions.
Yeah.
12?
12.
That's insane.
It
That's like there's only 8 now, or no. There's probably like
There's
12 now,
12
right?
now.
There's 12 now. There's
That's
12 now.
insane. There's
Doubling the amount
12
of
new
champions.
ones. Well, that is nuts, guy. I can't wait to see all the classes and see everything that goes together. But I really appreciate your time tonight talking. This was a blast, and really appreciate you doing this with me.